Okay.
Welcome to another episode of Where Medicine Meets Ministry. Dr. Cherie talks faith and facts. And this morning, I'm so excited because we have with us a guest, Annette Comer. Let me tell you, this woman is a dynamic, driven, daring, and delightful woman of God. She helps women become savvy business leaders who know how to win without losing their authentic selves. And she is a women leadership expert, best-selling author, international speaker, seven-figure entrepreneur. And I'm hoping that after the interview, she'll let me hold about 5, maybe. And she is the founder of the world's greatest women academy and co-host of the Achieve and Thrive podcast. Now, I've known Annette for many years now, and I was fortunate to be a keynote speaker at one of her live events. And then I went on to attend a couple of her World's Greatest Women Academy 3-day events. I also became one of a handful of women selected to be part of what she's so aptly named and called the Inner Circle, where women leaders and entrepreneurs garner deeper executive knowledge under her tutelage and help build each other up by sharing our vast resources with one another. And so without further ado, please help me welcome the beautiful, the fantastic Miss Annette Comer. Annette, how you doing this morning?
Oh, great, Dr. Cherie. And so great to see you. You know, it's such a blessing. We always lift each other up. We share such incredible ideas. And I'm just so thrilled that you invited me. And absolutely thrilled.
I'm thrilled that you accept it. I mean, I know that even in this new world, living with COVID-19 right now and all of the changes, I know that for some of us, things have slowed down to a point. I mean, but you have like 4 successful businesses and you are still managing to keep them going. And I know for you writing through here, it has to be a difficult time trying to manage staff and not have to furlough workers. And I just think that your expertise, one, is very valuable to the audience. They're going to garner some additional strengths and tools that they didn't even realize were even possible or maybe even lie deep within. But you have a unique way of pulling individual skills and knowledge and expertise out of them and making them aware of their capabilities. So I just thought it was very appropriate to have you on the show just to give individuals hope and to let individuals know that even in a time of what may feel like drought, uncertainty, confusion, there is a way to kind of hold it together when you have the proper tools. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do know, and hopefully we'll talk a little bit about when you're in this challenging situations, like so many are finding themselves now here, and not relying on a higher power to direct them. And for you and I, that higher power is Jesus Christ and our, and our holy God. So if you aren't relying on a higher power and you're in this space of fear, you truly shut down on creativity. You don't have energy, and what I am finding as a blessing right now ends up being a total curse for people and a horrible place to be. And
wow. Okay, so that is a perfect segue for my first question. Now I know that you are a driven woman who is rooted in Christian faith. How do these intersect for you?
Well, it's interesting. It's intersected different ways along the journey of my life. And I want to share with your listeners how it's probably intersected the most prominent way in the last decade, to a place where my drive is not about my ego. My drive is about the business of the Lord and what needs to be done. And we all bring different talents to the party, for sure. He gives us, each of us, gifts. And the gifts that I have, I'm very aware of. I've come very much in touch with those. And it's the kind of thing that you and I've often laughed about, the saying that too much is given, much is expected. And I take this very much to heart. So I am very, very busy, very driven, and each day I make sure that what I do with my companies, what I do with my employees, what I do with my mission is very focused on the glory of enlightening the thing that's been laid on my heart.
That is awesome.
Level, and help them help them step into leadership roles, because we so desperately need this feminine leadership interacting in our world today.
Desperately. And I believe that with teachings that you're able to provide to women, we already have a certain level of nurturing that's just become a natural part of us. I believe it was, gifted to us by God throughout, for those of us that choose to have children, those that don't, there is a certain nurturing, whether or not we're going to share that with a child, whether or not we're going to share that with nieces and nephews, or whether we're going to share that with an employee base. We have a deeper, caring, let me grab your hand and take you along with us type of attitude. And one of the things that attracted me to you were two things. One, you have that attitude, but let me take you with me and let me build you up. Let me grow you. Let me develop you. And then you always couple that with, in whatsoever I do, I'm going to do it heartily as unto the Lord. And so there's this duality here of let's grow and let's lead and not lose our authentic selves, but then let's not remember the Father who created us and made us, and spread this love and spread this compassion and spread this knowledge. That's what drew me to you.
Absolutely. And that is the essence of who I am, Cherie. There's no I don't have to pretend in that space. It is a very natural, for our listeners, when they are able to get in touch with who they are and not try to be someone they're not, and to rest in that assurance that if they are who they are, and in the business world, they need to do it in a strategic way, because they can't just show up how they are at home in the business world. You and I both know that. Women miss that sometimes, but they can bring their authentic selves in and actually be real agent in this world today. And we have, I think we as women stay in this nurturing phase in the business world in an unhealthy way. And because it's very confusing for us. And if you're mothers, and there's a lot of mothers out there, they know how to do that nurturing very well. I mean, they're the one that holds the family together. They're the ones that make sure the children are taken care of. And they have all the skills they need. They also have the skills to step into much larger roles and to be the change agents, to be the ones leading different places in the world that are so desperately need that blend of nurture and strength. And women don't tend to come as much from the ego side as men do. And so that allows them to have a place of power that's not recognized easily by men. Men don't really understand it.
True.
And we don't need them to understand it, but we need to show up in a way that we make them comfortable with us. Because if we show up in a way that we can make them comfortable with us, then we can lead in our own style, and we can move forward. The purpose is laid on our heart by our connection to God. Mm-hmm. And you and I both know that connection for everybody can be there if they seek it, and they got to listen.
True.
The interesting thing about this time we're in, come back and listen to this 6 months from now, and we'll be at a different place. But people will always remember this pause of the world. And I hope that in spite of the pain and difficulty that it's caused so many people, I hope they will see the silver lining, that maybe they stopped long enough to listen to God. Because guess what? We can't listen when we're running a mile a minute.
No, we can't. We really can't. But when you settle, when you slow down, and I have to admit, at the beginning of this, it was difficult for me. Being a driven woman, I, I always have my hands in something and I'm always doing. And so now to, have speaking engagements that were, just completely canceled because they couldn't turn on a dime and make them virtual. And then now I just had this energy, and it felt like nervous energy, like I should be doing something, but I can't do anything. And so you sit there and you try to figure out, well, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And then I just realized, and I came across scriptures that really identify this is a season. And Cherie acknowledged that in this season, when seasons change, there is a change in you. And God is more interested in changing us than he is our circumstances. But sometimes he will allow the circumstance to cause you to pause. And so now I settle back and I stopped searching for things to do. And I just was still. Be still and know that I am God. I was just still. And I allowed myself to hear and listen through, and sometimes people think that, when God speaks to you, that it is, I heard a voice. And it wasn't that. It wasn't that. But sometimes it's just a settling in your heart, a thought that'll come to your mind about something he had planted for you to do a while back, but the cards didn't line up for it to come together then. But now, well, maybe now is a good time to do it. So it's those things that give you peace. Sometimes people may say something to you, and it's two different people on two opposite ends of the globe saying the same thing, and it's confirmation. So you learn to listen to God through various different channels. And once I did that, I had purpose during this season. And there are certain things that I know it will complete during this kind of odd time we're in. But some of the things that God has changed in me, for me, and through me are going to continue through this season. And I love it, but you miss out if you don't stop and you don't listen and settle.
And it's something that I came across this past week that I want to add to that powerful statement that you just made. And that is that when you stop and listen, now you start to pay attention to what voice have you been listening to. Because there's the voice of God and there's the voice of the world. If you are listening to the voice of God, there is a different place that you enter into. There is a place of peace. There's a place of contentment. There isn't fear. There might be a little of anxiousness because you don't understand how it's all going to unfold. But there's not this, oh my gosh, things are falling apart type thing. It's almost watching it unfold and wondering where the Lord is going to take it and use it to his glory.
Mm-hmm.
And when you aren't listening to the right voice, in the world seem to be okay, like how we treat each other and how the bullying and the racism and on and on and on. When you're listening to the wrong voice, all those things seem okay. And if you're listening to the voice of God, none of those are okay. Hurting people is not okay. Not recognizing they're all his children is not okay. And so it's a very different place. And I the person I was talking to about this, who is a minister, was interesting because he made the comment that when people listen to the wrong voice for a long time, it's very hard for them to give up that position. They become so cemented in it, it's hard for them to get over back to the other side. And he gave something as simple as how the Bible begins of Adam and Eve and how they stopped listening to God's voice and started listening to the serpent. And it was a great story to illustrate how that can be happening for people today and how it happens for people all the time. Think about, what voice do I listen to and where does that put me in the middle of crisis?
Now, talking about hearing God's voice, I know that there have been times when medicine meets ministry for you. Is there one time that you can say you will never forget?
Yes, that it was about 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it happened at a point. I do a lot of international travel, and I picked up something, some kind of bacteria or something. I was in Croatia traveling, and by the time I could get back home, which took me 2 weeks to get back home, long story there. But by the time I got back, I was very, very sick, and by the time that someone got me to a doctor, um, it was 3 weeks into this, and I had lost a tremendous amount of weight, was severely dehydrated, was truly near death. And the interesting thing, when I entered a space of complete surrender, and I came very at peace with dying. It was okay. It was really okay. And I even expressed that to my husband, that it was really okay. Well, he didn't think it was okay. I mean, he cried like a baby. But the thing that happened for me then is I felt what true surrender to God felt like. And it was the most intense peace. But I remember thinking to myself, I never want to forget that feeling. And I want to hang on to that in some fashion. And that as I move forward to be about the Lord's work and what he's put on my heart to do, that I want to remember that feeling of peace that comes from surrender. So it was a life-changing moment for me, because I never had felt that kind of peace. And it came from a place of surrender, which I would have never surrendered before, because happen. Somehow we think it's a weakness. And for me, it was probably a turning point of strength, of where faith met medicine, and in the form of my health. And it's kind of one of those things when people have, cancer and horrible things, and they say it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It changed everything.
I'm feeling a lot of the same feelings that I went through when I was battling breast cancer. And during the time when I was going through chemo, was diagnosed with a congenital heart defect that was potentially life-threatening. I was at the same point, and I remember what it felt like. And it was interesting, because it was actually just a few days, about 30 days before my mom transitioned. And I really thought in my mind, I was going to go before her. And it's something about that surrender that has caused me to go, to help me further develop my blueprint. I'm the queen of let go and live.
I know that.
And that's where that let go and live came from. That let go, same word, surrender. I learned how to truly let it go. Let it go. God, whatever is your will, let your will be done. And, just like Christ, when he was on the cross, he said, if it be your will, remove this cup from me, but then followed it right back up. But nevertheless, your will be done. And so, I let people know that it's okay if in that moment, you have that moment where you say, I don't know if I can take all of this. I don't know if I wanted this anymore. But wow, what maturity and surrender comes with, but nevertheless, let your will be done. That is that surrendering. That is that let go. And I believe that when individuals, however you reach that moment, whether it's your surrender moment, whether or not it's your let go moment, it is after that you can truly live, because now you are living with purpose. You are talking with purpose. You are acting on purpose. It's like none of the things that you ever did in the past even amount, because now everything has a significant meaning. Now, I don't mean whether or not you choose Cheerios versus Raisin Bran this morning for breakfast. I'm not talking about going that deep. But what I am saying is, well, maybe there is an intended purpose to switch maybe from Captain Crunch, which is all sugar, to maybe something like Kashi. That's a little bit more. But what I'm saying is, you do things with intention now. There is an intentionality about what you're doing, because you know that what you're doing goes beyond you. it extends beyond you, and you now recognize your area of service. There is something about service that comes in to your surrendering, doesn't it? Because I know I've seen you serve individuals, not just corporately in your jobs, but I mean just being a blessing, just dropping pearls and dropping finances and rendering your time and service. I've seen it in you. Wouldn't you say that something about that surrendering just allows you to fulfill your purpose and serve so much easier?
And something else that comes from that, and I want to see if you felt the same thing, Dr. Cherie. After that, when I got my health back, and then, and of course, that health crisis and that faith crisis at the same time were a critical turning point, because there was a crisis of both of those. It was an intersection that happened. But after that, there became almost not only the sense of purpose, that I needed to be about his business now. I needed to not sit on the couch and watch TV for 4 or 5 hours. I needed to be about his work right now. And that everything that I do when I get up in the morning, the first thought that enters my mind is a place of gratitude, and to say, give me what I need to be about your work today. And so when I go about that with that kind of attitude, do I get frustrated? Sure. But anger all day, I catch myself, and even health issues have become different. So we're talking about faith meets ministry. When if I have a health issue and my stomach's upset, let's say, something as simple as that, instead of coming from a place of fear, I come from a place of faith. So I say, okay, what are you trying to tell me? What am I off center on? Say, am I not taking care of my nutritionally? What am I? Because I know you have designed me to be in a place of good health all the time. So if I'm not in good health, it's because of something that's out of whack that I have control over. And what is that? And that's a very different place from where most Americans come. But when you come to that place, so for true faith to meet ministry, that's where you should be coming from, to realize that you are an extension. Your faith is ability to surrender to God's will and to have a sense of urgency. And that within that, there is this container that we're in. The medicine part of that is so connected to your faith, because you have to have good health, and you have to have all that part that medicine encompasses to be able to step forward in faith and do his will. And people miss that. Somehow they see them not connected. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, to you.
But that is so aptly said. You summed it. I couldn't have summed it up any better than that. There is this sense of, with that surrendering, a sense of urgency, almost like we need to run to redeem the time. Like this realization has caused us to realize how finite our time here on earth is. And so with that knowledge, where do my priorities lie? And if my priorities lie in this field of service and of purpose and of getting things done, then let me get to it, because we got to a place where we saw just how fragile we were, and how in a split second, boom, all of the things that you originally could do, getting up, walking on your own, eating your food, you could taste your food, you could run up the stairs, and now to have your health challenged to a place where now you can't do that. Now when you do have the activities of your limbs, you do feel good. Now you realize, now I'm gonna keep a right balance. Now I'm gonna do what I need to do. I'm not gonna sit on the couch. I'm not gonna be a couch potato. I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna do the work that's designed for me. But at the same time, I believe there is a realization of, well, I'm not gonna work myself to death either. Right. So there has to be that balance. But I think when you get to that end, you're now able to step back and evaluate, what was I doing before that was beneficial and purposeful. Now, let me continue to do that and maybe even perfect that. But where I was wasting time, where I wasn't eating the right things, where I wasn't exercising, or where I was really putting myself into everybody else's situation and problems and not really grabbing hold of my life, you know what, then I need to step back from that. And I'm hoping what individuals listening will gather is that when you have this critical moment in your life, recognize it and act on it. And when you act on it, make it a part and keep it a part of who you are. And when life starts happening where you tend to try to revert back to the way you were, stop. Remember that turning point and maintain that focus. And I know that you help women to maintain that purpose. You help them to maintain that vision. And I would say when I look at you that you seem to be on a quest. I mean, and a quest is more than a journey. It's this deep driven drive to elevate women leaders. What is driving this passion for you?
I think it isn't a passion that I initially embraced. It was like and maybe your listeners can relate to this, and I know you can certainly relate to it, Dr. Shree, is that something gets a hold of you, an idea or a concept. It won't let go. You push it away and it shows up in your dreams, and people come into your path and remind you that this. And I went through a long struggle of saying, am I the one to step forward and show the world how women can lead and be a prominent force of leadership in the world in a way that they can walk side by side with men and not be a threat, but be true partners in leadership. And for that. And women are very much designed for that. And it tugged at me for a long time. You saw it first show up in the academy of me pulling that together. But it still wouldn't let go even with that form of service. And I'd have these wrestles with God. It makes me think of Jacob, how he wrestled with God. So I had won because I said, why me? I'm not this, I'm not that. We have all these conversations with ourselves of all the things that we aren't. And then someone said to me one time, why not you? And then you sit back and you process that a little bit. And then I finally got to a point where when I would share my passion of what I envisioned for women and for women leaders and how they played in changing the world that we live in. Well, someone said a lot of times, you don't know how big this is going to be. And I would laugh at that. And then finally someone said to me, how many times do you need to hear it? Why are you laughing? How many times you need to hear it? And that really made me step back. And I thought, oh my gosh, maybe the Lord is, it's like the old story we hear of the guys up on the roof and the flood and keep sending all these things and he keeps ignoring them. And so I again had a conversation where I journaled it and I finally accepted the fact that this is what my purpose is for the rest of my life. And once I accepted that, things changed, because what changed is instead of me fighting against God, I surrendered. Like we talked about, I surrendered. And then I said, okay, I'm here, I'm showing up, I'm doing this. And now I'm waiting for you to send me everything that I need. I'll be about my part, you do your part. And all these resources started showing up and things have continued to come. ideas. It's like when you get to that place, and I want your listeners to really hear this, when you get to that place where you accept the passion that the Lord has put on your heart, when you get to that, it's like your imagination and your creativity and everything is on fire. It's like the most expensive race car. All the cylinders are firing so good and so hot. And I've never experienced that at this level. I have worried about, where is this going? How am I going to accomplish this? And now I almost look at it from a place of wonder. Wonder how this is going to unfold. Not like, oh my gosh, where am I going to get the money? Where am I going to get this? Where am I going to get this? That doesn't even become a part of my internal conversation anymore. It's almost like, oh, wonder how that's going to show up. Mm-hmm. And then when it shows up, I'm like, well, of course that's how it's going to show up. A different way of existence. And most people around me have no understanding of it at all. They can't understand where I am, and I don't even try to explain it. I just go about my work. And
wow,
does that help?
It totally does, because it again takes us back to that place of realization and that place of surrender and that place of purpose and vision that I believe, I'd like to believe that every individual will be allowed and given the opportunity to have this moment in their lives. Some may take a significant more tragedy to kind of get it. Others, it just may be a simple little something. But whatever it is for you, don't miss it, because it truly is life-changing. Now, I tell individuals that my diagnosis with my breast cancer and going through my treatment, I would not say that my testimony is, oh, breast cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, although a lot of great things happened in my life that would not have happened had I not had that experience. National spokesperson, I believe it opened the door to my speaking career. And there were a lot of things, but I can say that for me, I learned how to be thankful in that situation as God brought me through it, not necessarily thankful for that situation. I'm not grateful. The breast cancer for me was not itself a blessing, but God bringing me through it, what he worked out that season in my life for understanding, he let the people who I thought were friends there, let them drop off by the wayside. So God opened my heart and opened up a place for you to come in, because before I had somebody that was standing in your place, because there's only so many people that I could allow within my inner circle. That's what that inner circle is. If you got 1,000 people in your inner circle, you might want to rethink that. It's not possible. And so there was somebody who wasn't real, and God knew you were coming in my life. And so going through that time period in my life where I had certain expectations and looked to certain people, when they did not come through, it hurt. Oh my God, going through that, it hurt. But when I had that moment, that come to Jesus moment, that moment of realization, that moment of purpose, that moment of I'm taking my pain and making it my purpose, my misery, and I'm making it my mission. When I had that moment, I was able to drop those people. And then when I came through it, I was okay with not necessarily having so many people around me. But then God knew ahead of time. He was like, oh, good. I want you to be content with right where you are. Oh, but Cherie, I have an armor for you. And that armor is, Annette Comer pops up. And then another armor, my husband, Donald Prentice, pops up. And so he began to fill my life with the individuals that build me up, that allow me to fulfill this purpose, that allow me and give me that strength to push when I get that leading, or somebody says something and I'm a little bit wavering, he'll allow you or somebody else in my inner circle to say the very thing that I've been thinking about as my confirmation that it's okay. Go ahead on and do it. I got your back. So you hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head. Now tell the listeners about Achieve and Thrive. That's a new podcast that you're going to be releasing, right?
Yes, it is. We're going to be releasing that the middle of June. And that has been an interesting divine-driven effort as well. What Achieve and Thrive is about, it's aimed at a women audience, and it's about where leadership meets authenticity. How can women marry those two, powerful and successful? And that has been a real struggle for women to be successful in the business world and in many different arenas, because they don't have good role models for leadership. And so it's very confusing for them. How can they walk in their own truth of who they are and still be accepted, understood, and heard, and show up where they can be change agents? So the woman that I have partnered with on that, she is an authenticity expert, and I come from the women's leadership expert. And we're tackling in that podcast some very tough topics that no one talks about in terms of how women are showing up, and how they need to rethink how they're showing up, and where they need to go with their leadership, and where they can tie into their authenticity. And in this case, authenticity defined as where their thoughts and emotions are aligned in a place where there's no distractions or interferences anymore. And our hope is through our we will show women how they can have a life where they can be leaders, where there's no interruptions or distractions, but instead they become women leaders that are untouchable.
I am super excited. That sounds fantastic. Now, I can't believe our time together. I mean, it flew by. So I'm just letting everybody know, I know you love Annette, and I love Annette, and Annette loves me. So this means that I'll get the opportunity to ask her back again, and she'll come back. I know for sure she will, because she is always doing so much. And I want you guys to garner as much knowledge from her as possible. But before I let you go, Annette, there's two things I want from you. I know that you are offering a freebie of some sort to the listeners, so that when the show notes come together, they will be able to click on the link and get something, a freebie from you. Can you tell us what that freebie is, what they could expect?
I've put together a checklist, and this checklist will help your listeners know where they need to focus if they really want to be game changers. If they want to change the way they're showing up, and they be a powerful force and become game changers, then this checklist is where they start. And they're going to find this at www.gamechangerchecklist.com. So if they go there, it'll tell them a little bit more, sent to their mailbox. And I think they'll find it a really useful tool. It's a great place to start, and to really be thinking about where they are now and where they want to go. Awesome.
Okay, so that was the first thing. The second thing is, I'm going to turn it over to you. Is there anything that you would like to say to our listeners before I let you go?
Only that don't be afraid to step forward in this time, and this time of chaos, and in the months and years ahead. Step forward into this leadership role. You have everything you need, and I am here to help guide you, to give you my wisdom, and give you the tools. And we need you. We need you more than we've ever needed. And if you care about your children, if you care about your world, your grandchildren, all the people in your world, then it's time for you to step forward. The time is more urgent now than it's ever been.
Ladies and gentlemen, Annette Comer, founder of the World's Greatest Women Academy, and Dr. Cherie. Until next time, Annette, thank you, my beautiful love.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.